Welcome back to the farm. By the way, this is Glab Farm. Everybody always asks, why do you name it Glab Farm? Well, my sister-in-law decided to name my husband and I Glab for Glenn and Abigail. So she just started calling us Glab. And so when we moved up here to Indiana and bought the farm, we decided to name it Glab Farm. So that's where our name comes from. Today, we are making beef jerky, which technically we are marinating it today and preparing it. Tomorrow we will dehydrate it. So what I've got here is about 2 pounds of London broil. I always go for the leanest piece of beef because you don't want a lot of fat and a lot of marmalade because fat equals moisture, and when you're dehydrating, you don't want moisture. So I've got a nice lean piece of London broil that we'll trim up, but first I want to make our marinade. I have a recipe here. It has been adjusted several times to get it right because this is one of Glenn's favorite things to have as a snack at work. So I've made this a few times. So first of all, to make the marinade, I've got Worcestershire sauce. We're doing a 1/3 cup of that. You notice they usually have those little stoppers in there. I take those out because otherwise you could be sitting here for several minutes waiting for the Worcestershire or soy sauce to come out. So now I've got a 1/3 cup of soy sauce. Next I've got some pure maple syrup, and I do 2 tablespoons of maple syrup. You could also use honey if you prefer, but with all my experimenting with this recipe, I liked it with the maple syrup. Then we're going to move to teaspoons. I have 2 teaspoons of garlic powder. Don't use garlic salt. That will adjust your recipe. I don't buy garlic salt at all. Every time my mom comes to visit, she buys me garlic salt, and then, like I just cleaned my cabinets the other day because I was bored, had to throw the garlic salt away. I like to add salt if I'm making anything. Now we have onion powder, so 2 teaspoons of onion powder. So some table grind black pepper, 2 teaspoons. My favorite part. You might want to do a little less on this, but I always do 2 teaspoons of red pepper flakes. Those of you who know me know that I like to put red pepper flakes in just about everything. Liquid smoke. I'm not a big fan of liquid smoke, but for beef jerky, this is awesome. So we're going to do 2 teaspoons of liquid smoke. And then we're going to do about a teaspoon of paprika. I like to use a smoked paprika. A little bit stuck inside of there. There we go. And then I have kosher salt, which I use so much kosher salt that I have to have a bin for it. I can't just keep it in a box. So I do about 1.5 tablespoons of kosher salt. Here's my favorite wooden spoon, but for this recipe, I have to use my whisk. So we're just going to whisk this all together. And our marinade is ready for the beef that we will slice. So I've got my London broil out here on my cutting board. Looking it over. Sometimes they'll have like a hidden piece of fat in here, but this one looks really good. If there is some hidden fat, this is my fillet knife or boning knife. I would just go through and clean it up a little bit, but this one looks pretty nice. I have had this in the freezer for a while. Pulled it out yesterday, let it start to thaw, because it's a lot easier to slice this when it's still a little bit frozen. You can see I'm pushing down on it, it's not frozen solid, but it's easier to get a nice clean slice. The big thing with this, you don't want to slice it too thin, you don't want to slice it too thick. You want to get it just right. So this is kind of what I'm looking at right here. Maybe a little touch thinner. I can throw right in there. If it's too thin, you have the real chance of overcooking it, making it like brittle. So that's why I always make mine a little bit thicker. So what I'm going to do, you want to slice against the grain. The grain on this London broil is all going like this. So therefore, I'm going to be slicing it across the grain like that. So I'm going to slice this whole London broil I'm gonna keep tossing it in the marinade, and then we'll bag it up. Okay, so I'm almost finished here with slicing the rest of this beef. I put on some gloves because I keep wanting to turn the meat so that every bit of each side of this beef gets the marinade on it. Because that is really important. It's really slippery at the end. It's completely thawed out. Okay, so your meat is already going to be turning colors, absorbing this nice, delicious marinade by the time you're done even cutting it. So then what I'm going to do, I'm going to put it into a Ziploc bag. And I'm not even going to think about it till tomorrow afternoon. This needs 24 hours to soak up all this love, all these juices, all these different flavors in there. Pour that in there. I'm gonna roll it, get the air out while all the juices are still at the bottom. And there we go. We'll see you tomorrow. So, it has been 24 hours for our marinating beef. What I want to do first is I'm going to drain it. And I've got a bowl under it. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to start layering it in all 5 of these racks for the dehydrator. What I'm going to do is I always mark my number 1 that I'm going to start with. This will go onto the bottom. And I know where I'm starting. So we'll end up rotating all of them so they all get a chance of being on the bottom for about 45 minutes. And we have a lid that goes on it as well. I put it at 60 degrees Celsius, which is about 140 degrees Fahrenheit. And we're going to go through 45-minute rotations of it. Once I get almost through a full rotation, I'll really be starting to check the meat to see if it is done. Sometimes thicker pieces take a little bit longer. Thinner pieces, I want to pull them out while they're still a little bit moist to them. I want them a little moist, a little chewy, but not too much. So I'm just going to go ahead and start layering in, and we are going to get this going. When I do this as well, you don't want to overcrowd the rack because then the air circulation doesn't go through very well, just like when you're smoking items on the smoker. You could actually get a paper towel or a dishcloth and do some extra drying, but I don't like to do that because that leaves room for some cross-contamination or any kind of lint or something to get onto the meat. So I just let it drain and then let it dry naturally in the dehydrator. So as you can see, that's where I'm going with it. I'll do one more ring, and then I'm going to go into my other racks. So we've got it all layered up. I've got my number 1 here on the bottom, so I know where I'm starting. Lid goes on, dehydrator goes on, and we'll check back in another 45 minutes. So this is our number 1 flat right here that we put in. So this would be the last one to go at the bottom. And look at that. Beef jerky is done. So what I'll do now is I'm just gonna let these sit up here and completely cool off before I do anything else with them. Then I will bag them up and they will go on the counter and we will snack on them and enjoy our beef jerky. So thanks for tuning in today. Next time we are going to be making some sourdough bread from a starter I have right here in this fancy little jar. So that will be our next episode, is sourdough bread. And that's all we've got for you. So thanks for tuning in. And from our family to yours, stay safe and be well.